My name is Aubrey, and I'm a Scruffy Looking Nerf Herder.
Welcome, everybody. Sorry,
Hi.
that was really delayed.
That was slow.
Like waiting for it to change in the corner. I'm like, I think it froze. Anyways, welcome everybody to the Infernal Brotherhood of Scruffy Looking Nerf Herders. This is a live Star Wars vidcast by Star Wars fans for Star Wars fans, and today we're gonna blow our load all over Darth Bane.
Just close your eyes and make sure the fans are turned off. Otherwise, it's gonna go everywhere.
Yes, make sure to have your special mask that keeps the orbalisks off as well as the semen, and you'll be good.
It's true.
It's true.
Really do need it. It could be problematic. Hi, Sean, in the chat room. I hope your audio is turned down.
Long time no see.
Yeah, I'm excited for this. So, a mutual friend, Joe, told us for I don't know, maybe months. You guys got to read these books.
Much longer.
Longer years. He's like, you've got to read the Bane books. Have you read the Bane books yet? So much so that I started reading them just so that I could have him shut up. And then I realized how fucking good they were.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, dude, have you have you read it? So we started like double teaming you with the Bane talk.
Yeah, it was pretty bad to the point where he like threw books at me like, read this shit. It's like, well, I gotta get the last one in the series. I just keep forgetting. Because like I am a horrible completionist. If I don't have an entire series, I can't sit down and read it.
Oh wow.
Because otherwise, that's all I'm gonna think about is that fuck, I don't have the final book. I mean, yeah, there's 12 books in between, but fuck, what if I finish too fast?
Jeez.
So, yeah, that's why it took me so damn long, because I just kept forgetting to get the third book.
I like to do the library route, so I'll just like borrow the audiobook, listen to it on my way to and from work, and then get the next one when that's out. And because this is now legend and it's not canon anymore, the books were totally available.
Oh yeah, nobody gives a shit. Well, probably has nothing to do with the fact that these are 12 years old or anything. But
first of all, they hold up. Like as far as storytelling goes.
I'm not talking shit at all. I'm just saying these came out in 2007. Like the final book came out in was it the final or the first that came out in 2007?
Oh, I don't know now.
Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, they're right there. But
you could just reach over and grab.
Yeah,
that's all right.
And you guys are gonna see my my lovely gym shorts, and you don't want that.
I'm not wearing any pants.
So Adam should reach for them then.
Actually, I'm wearing those jean shorts from yesterday.
Oh God, that was so awesome. I still need to get that picture from Shauna of us with the crocodile.
No, I need to do some Photoshop work to get rid of my belly first.
No, you were sticking it out. That's what it was.
Yeah, that's totally it.
You're just like, oh, it's a white trash party. Let's just look the part. Cameron's already there.
I don't even drink beer, and I have a beer belly. That's the weird part. I don't get it. Okay, so we're going to be talking about Darth Bane, but again, because it's sort of broken up between Legends and canon, there's not much info in the canon side, so we're going to leave that to the end. We're going to lead with our Legends stuff based on these three novels. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, just overview, sort of like, Eagle, high-level type information. I think this is probably my favorite trilogy outside of the actual film trilogies, as far as novelizations.
I would still honestly put the Heir to the Empire trilogy above this, but this is a fucking close second. Like, if you want some Old Republic, like pure Sith, just badassery, yeah, this will deliver on every level. Like, to the point where I actually have like pictures of highlighted sections in my phone that I kept telling myself I was going to use for the show. Oh, really? And realistically, I just look at them for fucking, inspiration.
Yeah. I'm doubting life. Let me read Darth Bane.
There's a lot of really inspirational shit in there. Maybe I'll even read a passage.
Ooh.
I'd have to. I didn't pull it up first, though.
We'll get copyright strikes anyway, so we might as well, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Got nothing to lose. So I wasn't even thinking about the Thrawn trilogy when I said that, but I'm still gonna stick with it. And the reason why is because part of the reason why I tried to stay away from this Old Republic stories so much. I mean, I dipped into the comics to get the origin of the Jedi and the Sith, but I never really stayed in the Old Republic era as far as consuming that content because I didn't like the idea of mass armies fighting each other. I liked the simplicity of there's two bad guys and there's one good guy who's being guided by the ghosts of the other good guys. And that it's this sort of romantic, tragic underdog story that I'd always connected with Star Wars. Like that's, the hero's journey. I always loved that so much. And so when it came time to read a little bit of Old Republic, this is the end of their Old Republic, I guess you could call it, because it's the end of the armies of good and bad, and it's the start of the Rule of Two, which is a sort of reboot of the Rule of Two when you think about it, since he didn't start doing the Rule of Two until after he was consumed Revan's holocron, which told him to do the Rule of Two.
Yeah.
So there's a couple things, and this isn't all glowing because, again, just sort of high level stuff at this point. There's some shit that kind of bugged me about this series too.
Really?
Yeah, and it was mainly because Darth Bane kept getting his ass kicked all the time, and then he had to be healed up, and then he could be badass again until the next time that he got his ass kicked again, and then he had to be healed up, and then it was just a constant in every single book.
Yeah, but the problem with him was, the whole cockiness of being the Dark Lord of the Sith, because at the point, post the oh my god, what I got it written down somewhere. Whatever. Anyways, the place where all the Sith died and all those Jedi.
Morgan?
No, it wasn't Korriban. It was the planet. Whatever. It'll come to me. Yeah, it was that one place.
It's the graveyard.
Yeah, it was where the thought bomb. Okay, are we getting into this, or are we?
All right, let's just fucking get into it.
Yeah.
Before we do, because we're gonna get to some specifics here, people. This isn't just emotional masturbation, though.
No, it's going to be. But we're gonna try to parse ourselves.
Yeah.
Not just go.
We're gonna do a little Sting style. So we're gonna tantric our way through to the end.
Yep.
I want to set the world stage, though, because a lot of people like me who didn't know about this era very well could be turned off because it's not like about the Jedi and the Sith.
Ooh, so vastly different.
And so I want to start there, and then we'll move forward, because this opens in an era like the first novel opens where it was outright war in the galaxy.
It was the Galactic Civil War, because it was the Sith War, as it was called.
Yeah, but it was because we think of the Empire and the Rebellion War in the original trilogy as a civil war, and that was just a band of a small ragtag group of terrorists fighting, the immense Empire. This Sith War was literal Sith armies against Jedi-led armies, and so it was like thousands of Sith and thousands of Jedi facing off. And one thing we have to make sure everyone is clear about is that though there was tons and tons of Jedi wielding lightsabers and using the Force, there were only most of the Sith warriors were soldiers. They were
the vast majority
wielding Force users. And so when we think of Sith in the context of this era, this is the remnants of this is the legacy of the Sith species, where the Sith is actually a species of Force-using creatures that was dominated by Dark Jedi, and the Dark Jedi took their name of the Sith.
Yeah.
And so we think of the Sith as the Rule of Two Sith, this is how it came to be with this trilogy. But at this time, the Sith were just like the Empire. It was a name associated with the army.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's crazy too to think that they kept it that long, because if you look at the timeline, the Sith purebloods died off about 3,000 years before this book took place, or 3,000 years before Bane was even born.
Yeah. Wow. And so as far as for everyone to understand, the Battle of Yavin is basically where Star Wars does its sort of AD BC type timeline.
Yeah.
So this was approximately 1,000 years before the Battle of Yavin.
Yep.
So, 1,000 years before we know of Luke Skywalker in any form. Just to sort of place it in galactic history, for the Star Wars universe. So this is some ancient type stuff, which again, the Sith itself was ancient in this time. And so it's strange that we had millennia of Sith running around battling with the Jedi, but that's just how it was.
Yeah. It was just the Empire under a different flag. That's really all it was.
Yeah.
Except they were overt about being dark side users, whereas Palpatine pretty much held that close to the belt.
Yeah, so you guys understand where the Sith were and how they were structured loosely as this dominant, like genuine threat of a military force. The Jedi were very, very different than what we remember them or we reflect on them. They're not Obi-Wan Kenobi.
No.
He's what the Jedi are supposed to be. These are, it's like if Anakin Skywalker didn't get turned to the bad side and he was just that sort of pompous douche that he was as a Padawan, that's kind of how the Jedi are. I mean, they have their Yoda-esque people and stuff, but most of the people you're running across on the battlefields, they're those pompous asshats.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you get a lot that, they don't even, like one of the first main generals that we encounter in the book, like post Bane becoming Bane and blah, 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 blah. Like he's just straight military. Like there's very little Jedi mindset in him. He just so happens to be a very powerful Force user.
That's one of the things that I really appreciated that they did that made me think of like gaming, is that when you think of like role-playing games, there's different types of Sith. You want to be the fighter Sith or the fighter Jedi, or you want to be the sort of spiritual Sith or the spiritual Jedi, or you want to be the tactician, Jedi or just tactician Sith. That's how it's broken out in this era as well. And so, you have your general, which is very much, sort of battle meditation focused, doesn't really worry about dueling lightsabers. He leaves that to other people because he's focused his entire life on strategy. And then you have your generals on the ground, your sort of commanders that probably aren't as skilled at lightsaber battle either, but they're focused more on combat technique and application. And then you have the actual individual Jedi, which all have their own little fighting disciplines and force power focuses. And so it is very much segmented in this sort of gamification frame, just so that you can have a full army of Jedi and have them actually be effective. Because if you don't have like medics and military troopers and stuff, if you don't have those different specialties, you don't have shit for a war. You're screwed.
So, you only swing a lightsaber so much.
Yeah, and so I always thought that was interesting that they did really break it down like that, and the way that they extrapolated character out of these sort of broad archetypes of Jedi and Sith was through not only their personality that they tried to bring out, but also through those sort of roles that they applied to these different characters. And I really did appreciate that, because you get no sense of that in A New Hope or any of those other movies. It's very much just like, oh, Jedi are one thing, they're Jedi. And this is very different.
That's one thing, going back, like reading books, just like even of like the Clone Wars era or the prequel era, you don't. It's like you get that, but you don't really get that. Like there are individuals that focus on like one aspect of the Force, but for the most part, like all you get is screen time of people just all doing the same shit. It's just they really missed a beat with that,
especially with the Clone War itself. Like in the redeeming parts for me of Episode 2, some of the redeeming parts, I think there's a few of them, are those combat sequences where you see Yoda flying in and commanding troops. If you had a couple of the other generals using their own Force talents in different ways, you could have really broken out that mold of what a Jedi is, and made them much more interesting than they actually are presented as, and that's just sword wielding generals. Like they don't do anything but cut people down.
Well, they can do flips. So, there's that.
There is flipping. That's very, very true. Good point. Flipping and cutting droids in half. That's all they do. Stupid Jedi. That's why they got their asses killed by the fucking clone army so easily. They didn't know anything else. They're like,
oh, they got
Force?
cocky. Even Yoda says it. We're so blinded by our own shit that we let the Sith rise
Verbatim.
again. Yeah, that's exactly what
Our own shit.
It's bullshit.
I bet you money he threw his own poop on Dagobah. Like, he was just so bored on Dagobah. I bet there was a point where he was just like, ooh, little worm. And he's like throwing his little Yoda poo.
I could see it. That would not surprise me.
I know he did. I just know it. He probably caked his feet in poo so that bugs wouldn't like get under his toenails or anything.
Well, I mean, those
funky toenails, dude.
Yeah, I would do the same thing too if I had to.
Okay.
Especially walking around in a swamp.
Yeah.
I mean, fuck, you don't know like what's floating around in the water.
That's what it was. He had Lyme disease. That's why he was acting crazy. It wasn't because he was trying to be cute with Luke. He was just fucking retarded. Like, he got messed up. All the diseases on Dagobah. He didn't account for that. He was like, oh, I could bring my Nikes, or I could just go walk through muck for decades.
I mean, it was also 900 years old. I mean, does he really need to stick around much longer? He's like, I've already done this, whatever. Yeah. Let's something.
Because he really took it. We're totally steering off the damn conversation. I'm
That's
sorry.
perfectly fine.
And let's get back to Bane and off of Yoda. Have we talked about Yoda yet? I mean, like a show dedicated to him?
No.
All right, we got to do that.
Okay. But before we do, have you read, God, what is it? Dark Journey, I think it is. No. It's a Clone Wars book about Count Dooku and Yoda. Because if you haven't read that, you got to read that before we can do it.
Okay.
That is some shit. Like Yoda goes dark side.
Oh, shit, really?
Yeah, it's some fucking shit.
All right, I'll do it. That'll be a good one. Okay, let's get back to this one.
Back to Darth Bane.
So Darth Bane didn't start as this Sith acolyte in training. He wasn't a chosen one. He was an abused son from an alcoholic, abusive father, and he had zero prospects in life. So much so that he ended up mining. Like, as a miner.
I mean, they were living on a mining planet. And the whole reason he got into mining was because of his alcoholic father, and he had to pay off his debt so that they could leave the planet.
Mm-hmm. So there's this big, tall, hulking monster of a human, you know, sort of that middle of the United States corn-fed type that you run across from time to time. That's what this guy was, and it was the fumes and the toxic environment of the mines that he was working in for so many years that made it like him lose his hair and just his skin get all like gross looking, and like he just wasn't a healthy person. But he was a talented Force user, even though, and at his point, it was much more like intuition based and not, you know, actively knowing even really what the Force was. And he used it to his advantage in a series of, I guess, equivalent of like poker games. It was Sabacc?
Yeah, he used to play Sabacc, and that's pretty much how he would get in fights and shit.
So he actually didn't even like the Sith, because the Sith were making them mine the whole planet. The Sith Empire took over the planet, forced them to mine resources of their own planet, and use them as slave labor, essentially. And so he really didn't like the Sith at all. And it was only because he had like tricked and pissed off this sort of Sith general that he was kind of forced to flee.
It was a Galactic Republic
really?
ensign. Yeah. It was because basically the gaming chunk of that planet, it was sort of like neutral ground.
Right.
And yeah, it was some dumb Galactic Republic douchebag that started some shit because he lost his ass, and they got in a tussle, and yeah, he fucking offed him.
Yeah. So he beat a bunch of people up, and he killed a few people, and he's a tough dude, and he's known for being like this.
Oh yeah. Well, that's what he did to his father.
It gets dark, people.
It gets pretty goddamn dark. Like, if you've ever had an abusive parent, like, you read this shit and you're like, fuck, why didn't I have the Force?
Yeah, I wish if I had it, I would have been like Bane. I mean, his name itself comes from his father saying that he was a bane on his life.
Yeah, it was the bane of his existence. And that's, you know, his original name is Dessel, or his friends called him Dez or Desi.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So messed up. So he's he's friends with sort of like the innkeep or the bartender or the owner of this establishment. I can't remember which it is. But he tells him, look, you need to leave and you need to like join the Sith, or this ensign is going to come back. Like the compatriots, the people, the Republic is going to come back and kill you. Like you're a dead man. And so he chose to leave and go with the Sith, where he was discovered to have this sort of latent Force sensibility, and no one really knew to the full extent. But he was sent to Korriban, which
well, see, and we're missing a huge part with this though, like how he got to that point, because he actually was going to prison because he was a part of the Gloomwalkers, which was like an elite force. Basically, when the Sith had a battle that was too fucking hard, and they needed just a small group of people to get in somewhere and destroy something, so the rest of the army could come in. That was them.
Sure, like the Green Berets or the SEALs.
Yeah, that's basically what it was. And he straight up beat the shit out of his commanding officer because his commanding officer was sending him on a suicide mission, and he knew it.
And the thing about Bane is, like, he knew how to use his Force sensibilities and just basic military tactics in order to.
Well, at this point, no, he didn't really know.
It was his. I could have swore they were saying that he was so skilled in his tactics because it was his Force.
Well, yeah, he wasn't aware of his Force abilities at this point, though.
Okay, so that's
like this. Still, he's just running off. All of this is just intuition.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't until after he beat the shit out of his commanding officer and got court-martialed that when he went to the tribunal of the Brotherhood of the Sith, or Brotherhood of whatever, those guys, the turds that he killed. Spoiler. It was when he went in front of them and they were like, well, fuck, you're pretty goddamn powerful. Like, they could just feel the power of the dark side radiating off of him. That's when it's like, okay, so instead of going to prison, let's go ahead and throw you on Korriban. Because at the time, during the Sith Empire, that was like the main campus for the super, like, basically what would become the Sith the Sith Masters at some point in time. Because they had different temples, different training facilities, but it was all for like different types, and that was like the elite of the elite.
Yeah, that's what I really wanted to put a pin in, because or just drive home. They did have different training facilities for the different types of roles that they would assign the Sith, but Korriban was like the toughest. It was not only was it the most conniving, because you essentially are having, students killing each other in their different trials and stuff, and just letting it happen because that's just what you have to do. Bane was obsessive, so he would before he lost his confidence, he built up his confidence in his own powers, not only because he was being mentored by some really powerful leaders of this school, but also because he put in the extra effort of studying and working really, really hard, more than other students. So much so because he realized he had potential. He didn't really know how far he could go, but he knew that he saw the reflection of what these other instructors saw in him, and he knew he could live up to, if not greater than them, then at least to their level. Which I always thought was interesting, because he knew he had greatness in him, and he was willing to put in the effort. Rather than just sort of sliding by and, getting out in the field and then trying to prove himself in the field like he had already done, for years in that unit, the Gloomwalkers. So I always thought that was really interesting. And then he has his first major defeat.
Yeah.
And it just devastates him.
Yeah, the big hulking mass of the Korriban campus, and then he's just basically the reject that nobody even wants to kill because he's so pitiful.
Yeah, the thing with these schools is you have to show promise and get the attention of someone to sort of mentor you. And then that person is going to mentor you, and maybe you even might have a couple instructors trying to vie for your attention so that they can have you as their apprentice and really mentor you and bring you up because they see such power in you. He had a lot of people vying for his attention until he lost, and no one would touch him with a 10-foot pole. And so if you don't have someone giving you secrets, then you just fall further and further behind of every other student because they're all getting that attention that he would have gotten. And so it was a really devastating time for him. And I mean, he was pretty sure he was going to get murdered at that point, right? By the other students. Like they did.
They didn't even pay attention to him at that point because he wasn't a threat anymore. Because what happened was he decided to pick a fight with the biggest kid in the school, and got his. Or wait, yeah, that was the first battle, right? Yeah, it was the first battle. Yeah. So nobody wanted him, and it was God. Wrote down her name and already forgot it. It wasn't until he got the attention of one of the other students, like one of the newer Sith recruits or whatever, where she was manipulating him to try to take down the biggest guy, and then she was essentially going to ride his coattails until she could off him, and then essentially take his place.
Well, they did go after him. After he left and came back, because ultimately he ended up like leaving the school.
Oh yeah, he went training. That's what it was. He went on his basically walkabout
because he couldn't get the attention of any of the instructors. He was like, "Fine, the students don't want to work with me. The instructors don't want to work with me. I'm gonna just bury my head in these ancient tombs that every other student ignored because they had instructors telling them what they thought was important." And so he learned like force abilities and knowledge that no one else had or knew about because no one bothered to do the research like he did. And it was in that piece of his character arc that I started connecting him with with Sidious. Because
Plagueis is apt too.
Well, yeah, that's actually very true. They were studiers of the Force. They they weren't like a Vader who was just like this, powerful soldier that just, went out. Like they studied the ancient secrets of the Force to try to become more powerful, and that's how they became so damn dominant and really.
Well, I mean, shit. Even the library on Korriban, like half the instructors hadn't read most of that shit, and he ate it all up.
Yeah. So they were having another major conflict at the time that he was away from the school studying, and everyone was like, look, we need to get Bane in here and have him join us for this conflict. And the instructors were like, he's not going to join us, he's going to leave us. Like, he doesn't want anything to do with this anymore. Like, I don't know, do you think that they felt bad that they treated him so poorly, or do they think that they just felt like he deserved to be on the out and he should feel good about joining us if we ask?
Yeah, no, definitely the latter. Because at that point, and of course,
there were warnings. Like, there were instructors that were like, look, he's powerful. Like, we can feel him. That's why they wanted him so bad.
No, not at that point. Well, they needed bodies is what it was, because it was supposed to be the final showdown with the Galactic Republic.
Right.
So they needed basically as many asses on the line as possible. Like, really, there was just the lightsaber instructor. That's the only one that really knew, because he was training him in secret. Because he always, like, from the time he got there until, well, he killed everybody. Like, he knew that there was potential with him.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was
but everybody else.
And we'll get to the rivalry between them two, but it wasn't a real rivalry. It was just a respectful, like, we are creatures of the sword. We are going to now face off. So before Bane officially, like, abandons the Sith army, he comes back and he's betrayed by the other students who are trying to murder him, right? Like, it was the girl who was trying to get him to kill the master, lightsaber duelist, who he defeated. But then she had a whole bunch of other students come with her into the library to, like, try to murder him. And it was then that he, like, murdered every one of them except for the girl, and she swore fealty to him.
Yeah.
Which,
sure.
Pretty much the worst situation ever to be in. You think you can take this dude with you and, like, 7 of your friends, and he just annihilates all of you without breaking a sweat.
Yeah, that's when he got his shit back. He had his mojo back.
Yeah, it was. But again, it was through study of the Sith, not through instruction from the school, which is why I think he really started gaining mad disdain for what the Sith had become.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, he even talks about that, like, in his inner monologues and shit. Is just the hypocrisy of the Sith is, they want power, but by staying to a core curriculum of what they were doing and ignoring all the past great masters, like they're weakening their like the whole Sith name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when there was this final request before he officially told them to F off, to join the military and join them in this upcoming final battle, and he was just like, no, I don't care, I don't want anything to do with you, and that was when they sent the Blade Master after him, right?
Yeah, and then
he's not going to join us, we have to kill him.
Yeah, and he only joined begrudgingly after that because the headmaster was like, well, if you come, I'll give you these, because he had a whole bunch of like ancient texts and shit that were only in his personal library.
Yeah. I always loved the motivations of Bane, because it was about power through understanding. It wasn't about power to lord over, a tribe of people. He lived most of his life in seclusion and study.
Oh, yeah.
Like throughout the entire arc of his life, which I always found was really fascinating, because it was against everything that the Sith were at the time.
Oh yeah, vastly different.
Which didn't make any sense that he would identify as a Sith, but he's identifying as this ancient version of a Sith that he believes they should be, that ultimately he made happen through his sheer power and will. So this massive battle's going on. The Blade Master goes out and tries to defeat him. At what point, because I'm sort of stammering here trying to recall, did he go back to the main battle and convince the general to go mad and kill everyone with a thought bomb?
Well, it was after that. It was pretty much like right after that, because they were on the same planet, and that was when he was like, all right, fuck you guys, I'm gonna walk over here and you fight with your Jedi. It was after that. It was fuck, I should remember this, because it had something to do with essentially the Blade Master's dying words, like giving him respect, blah blah blah. But yeah, it was right after that where he's like, you know what, I've got all these fucking texts, I've got these spells, I'm sick of these turds, I'm gonna take them out in one go. And so that's what he did.
It was pretty fascinating, because like he helped, like he came in as if he was going to help them, and then he convinced the I can't remember like the guy's name, but he was like the master, ancient Dark Lord, and only the leaders of Korriban, the Sith leaders of Korriban, were called Dark Lords. Everyone else was just a Sith. But it was one of the Dark Lord combat master, like general, that ended up killing everyone, right? Because it wasn't even Bane himself that did it.
No, well, I mean, Bane did in a sly way, but because at this point, like it seemed like they were going to lose anyways. So he had told him about the thought bomb ritual and explained that I can't do this. I'm not powerful enough. You are. If you do this, you can destroy all the Jedi, and if you're powerful enough, you'll walk away. And yeah, wasn't able to walk away. But he did explain to him that anybody that went with him would inevitably become a part of the bomb.
It was pretty well. So that was the first time he actually was incapacitated himself, right? And he had to rely on like that medic, the local healer on the planet, to even keep him alive at all.
Yeah, because he was too close, and it started to take him a little bit.
I always loved that too. That he as powerful as he was as vulnerable as everyone else.
Oh, yeah, he was just immortal.
Yeah, ultimately, what drove him to not only seek knowledges that would extend his life or protect him from damage and from lightsabers and force powers, but also to help extend his life and understand the complexities of the dark side more. And he truly understood that through pain, I get more powerful. And he understood that there was trade-offs. Like, you can become more powerful in the Force, but your body is going to degenerate slowly because of it. And that's another thing that up until this book, I had never even really considered. I always thought of Palpatine looking the way he was simply because it was a backlash of the Force lightning that he was using. I never thought that his body was still continually deteriorating because of his use of the dark side itself. And so it puts this not only fine point on, if you are a dark side user, you will not live forever unless you can sort of, you know, and this is ultimately what all the dark side users do, because they have to, in order to live, find another vessel or find some other way of regenerating your own cells or getting another host to live within, because otherwise your body is just going to be accelerated in death.
Yeah, and it's crazy because it is something that is sort of discussed in other like Old Republic stuff, like including the video games. Like it sort of explains what changed you, but never quite to that extent where it literally, you know, hey, this shit's quite literally just taking away from you. As much as you take from the dark side of the Force, the dark side takes back.
You got to pay the piper. Yeah, and I always thought of like, you had signs of corruption with your eyes and, you know, your pupils and stuff like that, and or, you know, color of your skin. I didn't realize it was actually killing you. Like that's well, the difference.
It's something, I forget what it's discussed in, but even with the light side of the Force, oh my god, it's going to drive me insane because I can't think of the book, like the title, but I can think of the book. But it's the same thing. Like that's what causes a lot of people to go corporeal, is they delve too deep into the Force, and you know, they become too much of a vessel that their body can't handle it, and then they just go poof. So that's actually both sides. Like it's any aspect of the Force.
I did not know that.
Like if you use too much of it, you'll become one with the Force, one way or another.
Huh. Well, that's interesting.
But yeah, this delves like a lot more into it, and I dig it.
All right, so it's at this point where he's brought back to health that he realizes he needs to stay under the radar of the Jedi, because the Jedi are still out there with the Republic.
Okay.
They believe at this point that the Sith are all destroyed, and he'd kind of like to keep it that way because you know, he's not going to be able to study otherwise. Like they're going to be hunting him down and trying to kill him.
Yeah.
So at what point does he get his first apprentice, or his only apprentice?
That's right after that. It's actually as he's trying to leave the planet, like right after he gets healed, because he's walking through the fields and stuff, and there's some stray Jedi just kind of hanging around. And when the thought bomb went off, there were these creatures. Of course, I forgot to write down what the fuck they were called, but basically they were just giant fluff balls of Force energy. And when the thought bomb went off, it destroyed everything within a certain amount of radius, and it drove those creatures that are super Force sensitive absolutely mad. So instead of being this, you know, the peace loving, calming creatures that they were insane, and they were trying to kill everybody. And Zana, or Raynon at the time, she was friends with a lot of them because she was an orphan on the planet. And yeah, she watched two Jedi kill her friends, so she killed them. Like she was so mad and so hurt that she ended up just snapping their neck with the Force. And as that happened, Darth Bane walks up and was like, "Huh, well, that's some shit. You want to kick it?
You want to hang out?
Yeah.
I can teach you some stuff." So he had gotten the holocron of Darth Revan before that battle, right?
Yeah, that was because during his essentially self-imposed exile, he was going to different tombs just to see if there was anything left, because of course there's always the hope that there's something left at the different tombs. He even did it on Korriban, where he went to the different Dark Lord's tombs and didn't find shit, so he started venturing elsewhere. And yeah, that was when he found Revan's holocron and figured out how to use it all the way. That's where he was getting the thought bomb ritual, and that's where he essentially learned the rule of two.
Yeah, and I thought that was really interesting too, because he learned it from Revan, who was thousands of years before him.
Oh yeah,
and yet the entire Sith Empire didn't even pay attention to it, which is weird.
Well, not really, because if you well, you haven't read the book. You need to read the book. Like the Revan novel is fucking fantastic. But like shortly, well, like the whole KOTOR series, like that's when he comes back as a light side user. Like he comes back to the Jedi way. So essentially the Sith want to just ignore everything that he did because he ended up becoming a Jedi again.
Right.
So of course all of that's pointless.
Okay. Well, that makes sense why they ignored it then.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise it was like, well, that doesn't make sense. Why?
Yeah, one of the most powerful fucking Sith Lords of all time. Yeah.
I stayed evil in the video game. So.
Yeah, it's God, it's just too fucking hard. I try every time. It's like, you know what? I'm gonna be light side this time. Yeah, no, I don't even. I can't do it.
I just like how it looks. Like the bad guys look cool too.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Everything about
well, yeah, especially with KOTOR too, because you will slowly watch them actually change.
Awesome.
But, yeah, it's too hard. It's so boring. You don't get money. You don't fight. Good guys are lame.
Yeah. Yeah, screw you, Yoda. All right, so it was like what, a decade after I think it was like a decade after the battle, after he became, after he destroyed the Sith, he started trying to become obsessed about leaving his legacy behind.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, he didn't go into this expecting to live forever. He went into this thinking, I need to create a rule of two, so I have to destroy what exists in order to preserve what the Sith are. This is what I have to do. I need to become as powerful as possible so I can attract the right type of apprentice that deserves to take over my power and to kill me to get it. And so that's like, he went into it wanting an apprentice to kill him. So when he found what would become Xana, he groomed her the whole time. You need to murder me when you feel like you're on par to do so. And I'm waiting for you to do that. It was during that time that he actually got all the insects on him, right?
It was so, a decade after that, part of her training, all that shit, he was still searching every single Sith Lord tomb that he could find to find more holocrones because he was obsessed with, building a holocrone of himself because that's how you pass on the legacy. Like if there's certain things that his apprentice didn't learn, somebody will pick it up at some point and learn that, and then it only helps the legacy of the Sith. And
so was he obsessed about creating the holocron because he didn't have faith in his apprentice, or because he just wanted to go beyond that? Like, I can't remember because he showed mad depression about his apprentice.
Not that early on.
Okay.
It wasn't until the sort of the latter years of her apprenticeship. Because early on, she was feisty as shit. She was easy to manipulate, easy to mold, and she stuck true to everything. It was just, he knew there had to be a central point of all the collected knowledge of, the millennias and millennias of the Sith knowledge. So he felt, because he was one of the most powerful lords, that he too should have one as well.
That's another thing that was super fascinating, is that they're super rare because they're super hard to create. So he had to find a holocron of an ancient Sith female who created holocrons to learn how to do it. And then after he finally learned how to do it, he still couldn't do it. It took him so long.
No, it took him 2 decades in order to figure out how to fucking do it, because you put so much of yourself into it that it could actually kill you if it's done wrong. And there were a few times where he came pretty goddamn close, and then he would throw a fit and destroy his camp. But yeah, it was let's see, it was during, oh man, I want to say it was Dark Lord Darzu's tomb. That's when he found a holocron, and when he got it, that's when the Orbalisk came out attached to him, and then he had to essentially use the holocron to figure out how the hell to stave off the bugs.
So he realized he could actually become much more powerful if he allowed these insects, because they fed on dark energy, but through that pain, he would actually become more powerful. And a side effect of that is that it was this sort of cortosis natural armor that no lightsaber could penetrate.
Nothing.
And so his entire body was just covered in these insects, and it made him virtually like immortal to any type of combat. He had to actually create this special helmet in order to keep it so he could breathe, right?
Yeah, he had to create a special helmet and special gloves so that he could still use them. And that was part of the holocron too, because that Dark Lord that made that holocron kept those for that reason. Like, one, it was a deterrent to keep people away that were going to, raid the grave, but also that's what that Dark Lord did, was found those, used them, and that's how they got powerful.
I went into this trilogy expecting to find a Sith Lord that wanted to conquest and wanted to destroy the Republic. And what you found instead was a Sith Lord that wanted to recede into the background, gather up lost knowledge, and pass it to a future Sith generation, which it just totally subverted all of my expectations. I really thought, and there are some really cool battle scenes in these books, but it's really about setting the stage for what would be, what we know of in A New Hope. The Galactic Republic.
It was definitely playing the long game, because his whole goal was, of course, complete power, and also complete decimation of the Jedi Order.
Yeah. So he's seeing himself get older. He's waiting for his apprentice to kill him, because he feels like now it's not going to be difficult. Like, he's an old man at this point. He had to remove all of those insects, decades later, because it was becoming too dangerous.
Yeah. Because he would go into a pure blood rage. Like, that's how he almost killed her the first time.
Yeah.
Was she stepped up trying to stop him, and he's like, "Fuck you!"
She just could not step up to him enough. Like, he was too bad. And so he's kind of part of the problem, is that, he's too powerful. Like, how can you expect any apprentice to be able to truly take you if you're fucking Darth Bane?
Yeah.
And so he starts to get pissed and looks down on her as this failure the older he gets and the more powerful she gets, because she's not stepping to him. And what he doesn't realize is that she's taken this secret apprentice of her own, and she's planning to take him. But he's at the point now where he's like, it's not even, if she does end up killing me, there's no glory in it for me, because I'm not at the height of my prime anymore. Yeah,
it goes back to the whole reason why he wanted to create the rule of two, because he always saw the problem with, the weak would team up and take down the powerful, and then they would become the powerful, and it was just a bastardization of the line each time, the powerful one died for the fucking, basically, the ingrates. Like, so he was pretty pissed.
So he quickly realized that he has to extend his life. He has to either find some way of getting young, or living longer, or reversing the effects of the dark side, or finding some way to transfer his essence. And he's heard legends of other Sith who could unlock this. And so he goes on these massive excavations trying to find more Sith knowledge from these ancient Sith.
Well, and part of it too was he actually, because of course their cover story, him being a rich entrepreneur, he actually had somebody that delved in ancient Sith artifacts, and he would just buy it as basically a relic, more like just like the way people collect Nazi paraphernalia. It's the same basic idea, just there's actual power to this.
yeah, which is a good thing.
Yeah,
friggin' Jurassic Park, a bunch of Hitlers. Bunch of failed artists. That would be the worst army ever. Just that would be pudgy fucking emo people. The world's not fair. Minecraft. What the fuck are we talking about? So
talking about him finding the holocron of Darth Anadu. Or Anadu. And that, goddamn it, that was such a cool experience too. Because one, he shows up on essentially like a Mustafar planet.
Yeah.
and two, like it's a still active temple because Darth Anadu was considered a god.
Yeah.
Because this is a core world, like deep core. Like you have to fucking make up your own hyperspace route to get there. But yeah, like there's still an active following there, and he had to get through all of them.
Weren't they like old ancient robots powered by Sith or something?
No,
Dark
it was
Force?
actual. No, they were worshippers of Darth Anadu. Like it was actual people there at the temple.
So, you got to refresh my memory. I swear there was like robots at one point, like droids.
Not with Darth Anadu's.
But that's the planet that was starting to like become unstable, right?
Yeah.
Where
Yeah, but I don't
Xana
remember
did her final stand with him.
No. That's that was on Doan.
Right, that's where she was planning on doing it with her apprentice, right? And then her apprentice
Yeah,
left.
but that's after he had already left because basically she found out that he was trying to get the better of her.
Yeah.
So she took off and wanted to fuck him up when she had a new apprentice.
Right.
But yeah, when he went to the God, what was the planet? I could have swore I had it written down. Apparently, I was doing really good this week.
Prakith.
Yeah, sure. We'll say that.
Where he claimed the holocron of the ancient Sith, Darth Anadu.
Yeah, there we go. That's what it is. Yeah, so basically she shows up to the house and he's not there and he's coming back from there. And that's when she decided, all right, fuck this. It's time to take him.
Mm-hmm.
And then they, of course, have their final confrontation on Doan.
Right. I mean, there's a whole bunch of like B story that we don't have time to get into.
No.
But I do like at the end when he finds out how to transfer his essence ultimately,
Mm-hmm.
and he just needs to find a good enough vessel. And I think for a while he thought it was going to be his apprentice's apprentice that he was going to use, right?
Yeah, he was unsure of where it was going to go.
Yeah. But ultimately, he ended up having a final battle with Xana, his apprentice, and he was losing, and he realized quickly, if I don't do this ritual right now, I'm gonna die, and she's going to rule over me, which is funny because that's what he was waiting for his entire life. And as soon as it came to actually happening, he realized I need power, and I'm not willing to go.
Well, see, I really think that's still part of the whole master apprentice thing. Like, if he can take her in any way, shape, or form, then she still is below him. Because one thing we did forget to mention, like of course, he trained her and everything, but she showed a lot of promise in sorcery, which is something he had no inkling of at all. And that's how she was beating him, other than the fact that he was old, withered, and had a tremor in his left hand.
I forgot about the sorcery part. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's how she became so fucking powerful.
Damn, that's a straight up Sidious move.
Yeah.
Focus on the sorcery. Well, that is like a parallel, right? Xana and Bane is Plagueis and Sidious.
Oh, absolutely. Except Plagueis doesn't live.
Well, does he?
Like, I don't know. It's he doesn't count anymore. Apparently, stupid canon.
He's a legend now.
But that's with the ends. Like that's. I remember when when I first finished it, we started actually just discussing it. Like you were pissed at the end because for everybody that doesn't know, the way it ends, he takes over her body, or it's assumed that he takes over her body
because the hand tremor, right?
Yeah, because the left hand tremor. Because the whole thing was he had to find a powerful enough vessel to contain his spirit, but it couldn't be so powerful that he couldn't push her will out. And, when the whole battle's over, he bamfs out her apprentice, Darth Cognis, is like, Master, is that you? Or Bane, is that you? And Xana's like, no, it's Xana. Yeah. And then the hand starts shaking.
So we don't know if
bullshit. It's like I knew from the get-go. Like as soon as he started discussing trying to find a way to live forever, and found out that there's a way to transfer your essence, it's like, yeah, of course he's gonna go for her.
But Like, that's why I wanted another book or another series.
Oh my god!
So that we
there's
could know
nothing.
if she was fighting it internally,
Mhm.
and that was part of the struggle, is her like clearly saying, "No, no, I'm Darthzana," and then he starts fighting her, and that's why the hand is tremoring. Or if he's just masquerading because he wants to seem as being dead, and his, his tail is showing.
Yeah, see, that's what I took it as, because that would make sense. I mean, it goes back to the whole, after the Brotherhood died, he's like, secrecy is our ally.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is how we're going to become powerful. This is how we will take over the galaxy.
Yeah.
So that's how I saw it. But yeah, it's devastating as soon as you finish that trilogy and you realize that there is nothing after this. Like, he's mentioned they are mentioned in some encyclopedias after the fact. Mm-hmm. There's a comic that came before this that's kind of a tie-in, and that's it.
Yeah. I mean, it was a quick cameo in Clone Wars.
Yeah. Well, okay, yeah, so there is that. I mean, there's the whole side of what we know is canon with him. Did not play out the same way.
No.
Like, at all. It's basically during the before the Clone Wars, the Jedi did completely wipe out the Sith Order. He just managed to survive somehow.
Right.
And then he hid.
Yeah.
And that was basically
and
it.
And then there was a remnant tether of his spirit to his tomb, but that was it. And it didn't even look the same. Like,
well, see, that was he did have some followers, and when he died, they took him to Morabond, which, if anybody doesn't know, Morabond is actually Korriban.
The new Korriban.
But yeah, because basically Palpatine was smart enough to realize that if anybody put two and two together and they realized that was the Sith home planet, then they'd go there, they'd do shit and all that stuff. So he changed the name. But yeah, that's where his temple, or that's where his tomb was and all that. And of course, that's the end of the Clone Wars, original Clone Wars, I guess I should say. That's where Yoda went.
Yeah. So I was a little bummed that we didn't, and we're probably never gonna. Okay, do you want to speculate for a minute?
Let's do this.
Because we know that there is a Old Republic trilogy coming out. Do you think, and we've already been teased about Revan through the mobile games and stuff. We've been teased about Bane through the mobile game and stuff, and the cartoon.
I don't remember.
Yeah, there's a mobile combat, like you build your team and duel.
Yeah, but I haven't seen Bane in it. I play that shit religiously.
Oh, okay. So, but I know Revan's in it, the light and dark Revan.
Yeah, Revan's definitely in it.
And then Bane's in the cartoon. So do you think that they're going to, since they're pulling those little legend tidbits out and repurposing them, do you think that the Old Republic trilogy is going to feature one or both of them?
I fucking hope so. At least a mention. And actually, the Clone Wars, like, I didn't know this until I was doing the research because I haven't watched any of the special features. But apparently, Revan was supposed to be in the Clone Wars as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like him and Bane were discussing with the son, like basically his further action and what he should do during like the whole Mortis arc.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
Bane was alive talking to Revan?
No, not alive. Like they were spirits, and they were just talking with the sun.
Oh, the
like the sun, not the son of someone. Like
right.
The son. Yeah,
that would have been awesome.
Yeah, there was a full arc, and then Lucas was just like, "Nah, I don't like it," as Uncle George always did. So it got scrapped, but it is a part of the deleted scenes apparently on that season. So
we have the map of the character coming up in the cycle here, so you can see what the model would have looked like.
Yeah, see, and I don't get it either because they completely changed that. Like that was the next episode was when we see him. And they decided, nah, we want him to look like an ancient samurai, which I dug.
This right here. Yeah.
But still, like they were going with the original art of Bane.
Mm-hmm. What if because if they do go back and there's a rumor that Dave Bautista would have played Bane.
I could see it.
If they developed out like a TV series or something, or if they did the trilogy, I think Dave Bautista would be perfect for Bane personally.
Absolutely.
Just perfect. He's just a massive hulking man. But it would be I think that would be interesting. I would want them, and I don't think that they're gonna go back to 3,000 years type stuff. I think they're gonna make it much more recent. You know, because he was just saying for like 1,000 generations, the Jedi were the guardians of peace in the galaxy. So, I mean, what is that? 1,000 years? Is that 10,000 years?
Well, that would essentially be Bane's era, anyways.
Yeah.
Like if we were going off,
but it wouldn't be Revan's era, which was my point.
No, because Revan was 5,000 years.
Yeah, because I think they are going to be tying the two together. Personally,
I hope so. Like we really have to have something other than the mobile game, because the mobile game it's in the air. Technically, it's supposed to be canon, whatever's on that, but it's not, because it's a fucking game on your telephone. Like I really think
funny thing to hear. It's a game on your telephone.
Yeah. Yeah, tell my fucking 12-year-old self that shit. Have a heart attack.
I was doing the
yeah. I remember the first time I showed my sister one of those phones. She looked at it like, what the hell is that?
You're all my youth.
Yes. That's how we did it back in the day.
So I don't know. Would you prefer they go back to a Revan era, or would you prefer to see like the Rule of Two through Bane?
See, I don't know. Like
because there's a better story arc for the Revan era.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have the fall and then the rise again.
Personally, that's what I would prefer to see, because we haven't seen that really.
Right.
Like we've had like the entire series has been the Rule of Two. Like I would like to see what happens before that, where, you know, outside of the video games, like we actually get the whole, like the Empire itself at odds with the Jedi or the Republic.
And that was a rumor that was being spread, that they were trying to adapt the Knights of the Old Republic story of Revan for the film trilogy that Benioff and Weiss were doing. But then there was another rumor that there was going to be a Dave Bautista-led Bane TV series for Disney Plus.
God, no, I would
like how awesome
die
would that future be?
Yeah,
if that happened.
I would love that so much.
All right, so lasting impressions of Bane for you. What do you think?
I fucking love this series. Like, I rarely do I ever get multiple copies of a book unless I destroy one, or if I have a soft cover and need a hardcover to complete the set, because that's what you do. But this is one that, honestly, I really want to get the audiobook version so I can just listen to it constantly. It's just, it is so beautifully written. And just, there was so much about, like, the early Sith, like the philosophies and all that stuff that was in there that I really, like, legit found inspiring. So it'd be nice to have that. You know, like people have their nice life-affirming shit in their headphones while they're running or whatever, and me, I'm just listening to Darth Bane talk about weakness and strength.
Feel
and shit.
your anger. Let the hate grow.
Yeah.
We're good people.
It's amazing, yeah. Hey, whatever pushes you, right?
Yeah, no, that's true. I think for me, the lasting impression of this trilogy is how beautifully it set up the Sith as being intellectuals and desires of hidden knowledge, and not so much hoarders of knowledge, and not so much just tyrants trying to rule a galaxy. Like, that's a long game aspiration, but in Bane's era, he's setting up the future, and he knows his place in history, which I just thought that was so brilliant. He knew this was his role in this moment in time, and he had to fulfill it no matter what. And I just wish desperately we could find out what the next step was.
God, I know.
Because it was right there, man. We were right there.
I kept, like, I did a lot of fucking research as soon as I finished that book, because it's like, there has to be at least a comic.
Yeah.
At least one fucking comic that gives us something after this, and there is nothing. Nothing at all, and it's so devastating because it's Legends. It doesn't count anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, it's devastating.
I mean, we already talked about Plagueis, but again, that book was amazing, and then they just scrap it. And this trilogy is amazing, and they better make a damn Disney Plus movie out of this, or series, because it deserves it. It would
Oh,
be
yeah.
so cool to see. Ugh.
Well, I think really, if they do any Bane stuff, they will have to pull from this.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we've said that about different characters. Like, oh, they better not fuck it up. Like, this is a character that they really better not fuck up.
It's just a great story. Because it's like he starts off as this loser miner who has no future at all. He's just going to die like he watches all of his like other neighbors and shit die. And then he gets like thrown into prison and like conscripted into an army, and then he becomes the most powerful Sith Lord of all time. And it's just like, that's the greatest story ever. It wasn't like Palpatine, who was cherry-picked because he was this serial killer in training. And he was like, oh, you're already a wealthy douchebag who already loves the dark side of the Force. Let me, further your training. No, this guy was a miner. He was going to die of black lung. Like, he was actively dying working in the mines. And from that, he went to the highest heights of any other Sith ever, except for that stupid silver spoon Palpatine.
Yeah.
Who apparently did the same thing in episode 9 because he's coming back. Do you think that what if they reference, no, I learned this from Bane or something? Like, what if, in the same way that he referenced his master in a discussion with Anakin, what if he mentions like Bane in a discussion with Kylo?
I don't know how I'd feel about that, to be honest. Just given this series, like the new trilogy, it's just, I don't know. At this point, it's like kind of leave everything else alone. Like, do your own shit. Let's finish it, and then get back to cherry picking from the legends. Right. Like, especially because like once a year, I'll watch The Last Jedi just to see if there's some redeeming qualities.
Right.
And I watched it on my flight back home, and I was pissed. Like, I was walking off that plane, like, waiting for somebody to bump into me so I could punch them in the fucking face. That's how pissed I was at that movie. So I kind of hope he doesn't say shit about me, because it might ruin it, and I might just fucking punch the person sitting next to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't want to do that.
All I can say is it better be good.
Yeah.
It better be good. Otherwise, I'm just going to forsake the movies and just go with Disney Plus.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're going to probably do that anyways.
We're definitely going to do that anyway. But it's whether or not I'm happy about it.
Yeah.
Only watching it. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode, everyone. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And if you want to let us know what you thought of Bane, if you read it, or if you're going to read it later and come back and listen to our incoherent babbling about it, let us know.
Yes, and please correct us, because we got a lot wrong. Yeah. I know I got a lot wrong.
I did too. I totally did. But it was months ago that I read it, and I just read the synopsis, and I was like, okay, I'm never going to remember every little detail. I read way too many stinking books to be able to do that, and I've got a stoner's brain. So
yeah, see, I was thinking, you know what? I read that shit in April. Like, that's cool, man. I'll remember everything. I have read 5 books since the first book.
Yeah.
So
I'm in the middle of I can't remember the name of the book I'm in the middle of. That's how my brain works. So there's no way.
I'm working on Alphabet Squadron.
Oh yeah,
which is pretty good. Check it out. It's no X-wing, but it's good.
I'm doing Doctor Sleep, which has a little Force of its own. You know,
oh my!
They call it Shining, but whatever.
God damn it, that's such a good movie or good book. I can't wait for the fucking movie.
I was laughing my ass off on the way to work this morning, and I was almost crying on the way home tonight, all because of that one book.
Yeah, it is. Like, there's Stephen King's a fucking master, just plain and simple.
Well, I'm sensing Barker in this one. Like, I get some real Barker type storytelling, which is why I think I love it so much more than his other stuff. Because I like Stephen King a lot. I like his work, but I love Clive Barker's work. And this one, I'm in love with this book. It is amazing.
Yeah, you'll have to tell me when you finish it what you thought of the ending, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about the ending of this episode.
Yes.
We always deviate.
God damn it. Everybody just read what we read because it's good.
Yeah, seriously. Then we can just talk about whatever. Thank you all so much. Until the next episode or our next weekly review, may the Force be with you.
The dark side will devour those who lack the power to control it.
That's not us. That's you.
That's you.
Awesome.
You'll be destroyed on me.
What's up, Princess Moon? Princess Moon.